I chose to do my vodcast on Australian cricket player Brett Lee. I chose Brett Lee because his autobiography, My Life, is a favourite of mine. I have enjoyed watching him over the years, and his Weet-Bix cricket ads were the reason I began to play cricket as a junior. Brett Lee is a former Australian fast bowler who represented his country in all three formats of the game during one of Australia's golden ages in cricket. During his illustrious cricketing career, Brett Lee made a name for himself as one of the fastest bowlers the world cricket has ever seen. In 2012, Brett Lee published his autobiography, My Life. This video will use this autobiography to understand and analyse the way in which Brett Lee utilised the opportunities that the sport's delivery systems presented to him as a player. Sport delivery systems are key systems in Australian sport which are responsible for the development of players from grassroots to international levels. They provide pathways for athletes to follow progressing through local, state and national levels whilst obtaining the correct coaching, technique and skills necessary to achieve the highest level of sporting excellence. It is essential that sport delivery systems are examined and understood so that further changes and developments can be made to maximise the potential of athletes in the future. Junior development squads, talent squads, under-17 and under-19 state and international squads, as well as academies and institutes are all examples of systems put into place to provide athletes with the greatest training, coaches, facilities and equipment, and are some of the examples of the structures Brett Lee used while developing as a cricketer. Born on the 8th of November 1976 in Wollongong, New South Wales, Lee was born and raised into a sporting family. He tried his hand at a number of sports, however cricket was the one that stuck, and by the age of 9, Lee had completed his first official cricket match. Both older brother Shane and younger brother Grant made domestic cricketing sides in Australia, so it's easy to see why Brett Lee began to play for local junior club, the Oak Flat Rats, at the age of 9. Such junior competitions follow a knockout competition format. This allows all participants to display and develop basic skills. Knockout competition format allows event organisers to sift through teams quickly, and also engages and actively involves participants of all skill levels. Teams that contain more developed players are likely to progress further in the competition, meeting other teams with similar skill levels. This creates a strong platform for scouts and talent agencies to begin to monitor certain athletes from a younger age. At the tender age of 16, Lee made his first grade debut for Campbelltown, progressing through the grassroots level and on towards first-class cricket. Shortly after, Lee had broken into the under-17s and under-19s junior Australian sides and was part of the under-19 squad selected to tour India later the year. A back injury sustained due to Lee's vigorous bowling action forced him out of the tour. He found himself injured, down on match fitness and facing his potential exclusion from the Australian setup. He was determined not to let his injury derail his career, and his efforts were rewarded during the 1995-1996 season. Lee's fortune was changed as that's the year that he received and accepted a scholarship at the Australian Institute of Sport in Canberra. This was a great opportunity for Lee to expand his cricketing knowledge whilst also acting as a stepping stone for further development in Lee's future. The AIS had scouted cricketing and sporting talents alike from around the country, and Lee's generation was no different. Also rising through the Institute's youth system were two young cricketers, Jason Gillespie and Mike Hussey, who would both go on to have successful international careers for Australia. It was at the AIS where Lee was exposed to an ideal successful sporting environment. He was put through vigorous training regimes, had access to top-of-the-range facilities and coaches, whilst also being introduced to the importance of fitness and diet. Player evaluations were constructed, highlighting strengths, weaknesses, and rooms for improvement. The structured and organised manner of the AIS provided Lee with the perfect environment necessary to succeed in, and it wouldn't be long before his drive and determination elevated him to new sporting levels. During the 97-98 season, his relentless efforts were rewarded, and he was selected to make his first-class debut for New South Wales in a Sheffield Shield game against Western Australia. The Sheffield Shield is Australia's first-class cricket competition and contests teams from Australia's 6 states. It is contested as a double round robin format, with each team playing every other team in home and away fixtures. Sheffield Shield matches are contested over 4 days, except the final, which is played over 5 days. Points are awarded based on wins, draws, losses or ties, with the top 2 teams playing a final at the end of the regular season. This delivery system provides teams with an opportunity to play each opponent away and at home, whilst giving all teams equal opportunity to perform throughout the season. Equal opportunity is vital in competitions such as the Sheffield Shield, as they act as a feeder into the Australian representative sides. Each domestic cricket team in Australia now has their own academy, in order to have a feeder program for participants to progress through. Lee's pace and vicious bounce made such an impact in his Sheffield Shield debut that the Western Australian team returned home feeling confident that they had just discovered and possibly faced the fastest bowler in Australia. Lee's development under the guide of coaches and training staff at the OAS and the under-17 and under-19 international levels was evident to see. Only a month after his first-class debut, he received highest honours and was selected to play for Australia A against South Africa. He took 2 wickets in the match. However, more significantly for his career, his back injury that had affected him throughout his teenage years had returned. The stress fractures that had once been present in his back had reopened, this time with a more serious and devastating effect. He was placed in a cast and was told to remain that way for all of 14 weeks. Lee's quick rise to the Australian cricket and his rapid rate of success had provided Brett with some very desirable qualities. He soon found a job when he began working at Barclays Menswear, selling suits and promoting men's fashion. This gave him a sense of direction during his time away from the game, whilst also allowing him to support himself with the income provided. Although he would soon return to cricket, this was a job that Brett Lee kept throughout his early cricketing career. In the summer of 1999, Brett Lee was selected to make his international debut against India. It took just 4 balls for Lee to make his presence felt, ripping the stumps out of the ground on his way to taking 5 wickets in a dominating display. In 2000, Brett Lee was named the Bradman Young Cricketer of the Year for his convincing bowling displays. Brett Lee soon became the face of Australian cricket, featuring in many adverts and sponsorship deals, most notably on the back of Weet-Bix packets across Australia. His hard-working nature and bright personality made him very desirable to companies who wanted to utilise this. He went on to have further sponsorship deals with Gatorade, Vodafone and Channel 9. The emergence of the speed gun in Test cricket confirmed what many had already suspected. Lee was consistently Australia's fastest bowler throughout the 2000s in all formats of the game. During the World Cup in 2003, Lee finally reached a personal milestone of his, cracking the 160 km/h mark for one of his deliveries. Despite his age, Lee maintained his pace throughout his career, which is a testament to his hard work, preparation and conditioning. In February 2010, Brett Lee announced his retirement from Test cricket as the 4th highest wicket taker in Australian Test history. He finished his career boasting multiple Team of the Year awards in both one-day and Test formats of the game. However, Brett Lee's biggest individual accolade came when he was presented with the Australian Test Player of the Year award in 2008, as well as the Allan Border Medal, which is presented to Australia's top cricket player. Lee continued to thrive in the shorter formats of the game and went on to win the Big Bash League with the Sydney Sixers in the 2011 and 12 season. Lee finished his Test career playing 76 matches, taking 310 wickets, with best figures of 5 for 30, and having 10 5-wicket innings. He scored 1,451 runs at an average of just over 20. Lee finished his one-day career with 380 wickets from 221 matches, best figures of 5 for 22, and scoring a total of 1,176 runs at an average of 17.81. It was very interesting to investigate the Australian Institute of Sport structure, whilst also learning of other cricket players who have also benefited from such a system. I believe Brett Lee has a great understanding of the sports delivery systems in Australia as a player and as an author. Throughout his autobiography, Lee highlights many difficult challenges he faced through his early cricketing career and the importance some of those decisions had on his cricketing future. Brett Lee is a fitting example of the importance sport delivery systems have in identifying, developing and producing athletes. The sports delivery systems in place allowed Brett Lee to commence at a junior level, progress to senior cricket for Campbelltown and then go on to become one of Australia's greatest ever bowlers. Brett Lee's outstanding career played a significant role in Australia's golden cricket age, and as a result, his legacy will live on.